Hey, what's up, everyone? We're live again. Everyone's in high spirits because we are in level 2. Very exciting stuff. People can get rock and rolling. People can go get their coffees, catch up with their mates, within reason, of course, but it's pretty cool that we're jumping into a new sense of normality and we can get back to lives as we knew it pre-COVID-19. Super excited for the guest coming onto the show today. She's a government relations dynamo, HSB founder, epic Kiwi. Bring on to the stage, Holly Bennet.
Kia ora.
How are you? How's the
I'm
mind?
good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. How's the last 2 months been?
Hard.
Hard? Yeah?
Really hard.
Take us through it. What's been happening in your world?
So I work in government relations, which means I do lobbying. So as you can imagine, I've been extremely under the pump with work. There's so many things to lobby, and caveat to COVID is that suddenly everyone understands the power of the democracy and the fact that politicians do have power and they do have the ability to do things which impinge on your daily lives. So that's been the upshot for me, is that I'm watching far more people be involved in the democracy. They understand what it means and that actually they do have the power to change things that they don't like. So I've just been extremely busy working for a whole bunch of clients. And I'm an extrovert, and lots of people know that about me. So I give and get energy from people. I value kanohi ki te kanohi, so face to face. And given that we haven't been able to do that for 7 weeks, I have definitely struggled.
Well, I'm extremely appreciative of you jumping on. We've just jumped into level 2 and now I'm extending your time being remote and jumping on the podcast. So thank you for that. We did organise this before we knew we'd be in level 2, but I know you've jumped out to get a coffee and just have a little bit of public interaction. So I'm sure, I hope you get your extroverted needs fulfilled after we jump off the podcast.
Absolutely. I'm going to Rotorua tomorrow, so going back down there, so that'll be good. And then next week, going to Tamaki Makaurau for 2 days, and then no trips to Wellington booked as of yet. Well, because they keep getting cancelled. But
what the flights do?
Yeah, they keep, because Air New Zealand keep cancelling them all. So I'm kind of like, that's all right. I won't go down there. I'll just do what I need to do.
We do what we can, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So for everyone who may not have known your story or your background, just give the quick 5 of what you're all about and what you keep busy with.
Okay, so I don't know how to. Weird, like, what do you want me to do? What, my mahi? Like, what I do for work?
Your background,
my own personal
your
story.
History. Your story. What you're involved with. Give the quick package of what Holly Bennet is all about.
So currently I am the director of 2 companies. One is HSB, which is a lobbying firm. I set that up at the end of 2017 and it's going really, really well. I've got an amazing book of clients who I absolutely adore and love working for. They're phenomenal. And then I've picked up a few more clients since COVID-19, just people who have had the chance to look at their paki, their businesses, and have a reset and think about what they want to do. It's at a very values-based business. So putia, money is not top of mind. It's actually about values and outcomes and things that we want to achieve with the clients and for them. And then Engage is my new business, which is not officially launched yet. It was supposed to launch on the 28th, I think, of April down in Parliament in Wellington. But COVID-19 has...
COVID-19 strikes again.
Exactly, stopped all of that. So it's in a holding pattern right now. Actually, the onus is on me to get my A into G and do the final web review, which my web guys have been telling me to do for weeks and I haven't been doing because I've been so busy. So shout out to the Powerhouse team because they're waiting for me to give them feedback and I still haven't done it. So I will do that in the coming weeks. Hopefully the platform will go live and then it will officially be launched when we can have gatherings of over 100 and I get the approval from Parliament. About myself, I'm 29 years old. I hail from Rotorua, Te Arawa, Ngāti Whakau, Ngāti Pikiao. I was born and raised in Tāmaki Makaurau, so I was born and raised in Auckland. Went to Auckland University and moved down to Wellington in 2013, which is where my foray into politics began.
Holly, we may have lost you. Uh-oh. We'll get her back on the ASAP.
Sorry,
Holly,
I'm on my phone. Sorry.
No drama. You know, with
so
all this remote working, you're not the first person on the podcast that's happened to. It's really interesting what's happened with this remote working. Like some people jump in and out. That's all good.
Well, to be fair, Rebecca told me like a year ago to sort out my tech and get proper things. And the furthest I got was getting a tripod, which is what I've got right now. So like we've got steps. The next thing is to get a mic so that I don't have to use these.
All good. Well, I'm still jamming them. It's all good. Anything goes. The rules are out the window these days with COVID-19.
Exactly. So I started in the Beehive at the end of 2013. I started in the Beehive as a ministerial secretary, which is essentially you're running all the correspondence in the front desk for the minister's office. And then by the time I left, I was ministerial advisor and in-house legal counsel. So had a few career jumps and had an amazing time working there. Incredibly tough time, so my heart goes out to all the advisors who are in there right now. I know exactly what they're going through. Well, actually, I think that they're actually probably in unprecedented territory, so I maybe that's too much to say I know exactly what they're going through. However, I know the stresses of the job and what they're having to do right now. It's the unseen work of the system that is we see what's on the newspaper. They're the ones that make the machinery work. So shout out to them, because regardless of political affiliations and what people believe in or what they think or value sets, those people who sit in behind the ministers right now, they are working extremely hard. And just like us, they will be relishing getting back into level 2 and then into level 1 to get their sense of normality, which for them, it still looks like 10-hour days, but the thing is they're probably working like 15, 20-hour days lately.
yeah, absolutely. So you know everything politics, which is pretty cool, because it's a world that a lot of people don't really understand, or they might be intimidated by. I think it's fair to say. So there's a lot to go through, because it's been a pretty crazy moment in history. But let's start with level 2. The new laws that have come into place. A lot of people have said that they're quite controversial. What's that about?
Well, I don't think it's this idea of level 2. It's certain parts of the legislation which the government has put in place because we're now no longer in a state of emergency. So the state of emergency is the thing that the Civil Defence Minister has the power to do at any time to say, hey, things are not working as they should be. So if you have things like kaikoura earthquake, if we had like a tsunami that took over one side of the country, they would need to have these powers to make sure that they can look after the people. And that is the point. And so that emergency notice can only extend for 7 days. So it has to be re-extended. And so the Civil Defence Minister has been doing that. Now, it's not talked about too widely because it's not interesting news. But for people to understand and get context, they need to know why things have happened. So it's very important to say that is the reason why it's done. Every government has the ability to do that. It's not unique to this government. Previous governments have used it, and future governments will use it, because having national emergencies is just an inevitability. It's going to happen. So we're now no longer in a state of emergency. So what the government has done, they've put through legislation in the House, which then starts to, in essence, codify or create the pieces of law that allows them to do things that they could do in the state of emergency right now. And so that is the controversial piece, because we're not in a state of emergency now, but they have legislated to allow themselves to do some of these things. Now, the piece of legislation, my understanding is that it was originally going to exist for 2 years, and I think that's been truncated back to 3 months. So it's only going to be a piece of law. So it's only going to, in essence, rule our lives for 3 months. Now, the thing that has caused the most problems and, the most concern in society is this overarching set of rules or powers that it gives the police to come into your home, they don't need permission that they can enter your home. Now, I understand why for New Zealanders that is an absolute, feels like, well, it does, it impinges on their human rights, because it does. We're not a police state. They don't have the ability to overreach like that, but we have a piece of legislation that now enables them to do that. Now, it becomes extremely problematic from my perspective, so this is just my view, is that I don't know if the police were pushing for this power. So the argument becomes, well, police can do this and that and that. Well, like, my brother's a police officer. I'm sure he really doesn't give a shit. And he has been working all through COVID-19 out on the street, having to deal with things. And he would have much preferred to have stayed at home. He's got a new baby. So it's like, I know that from his perspective, he's not thinking of it like, I would love to go in and like have a ferret around in people's homes. So that's one element of it. Then we also have the element, well, then why is that need to then go that far? Do we really not trust our fellow Kiwis? And that's the kind of sense that we're getting. And that, I think, is the more confronting thing for Kiwis, is that they're like, well, I know what the rules are. I've followed them for 7 weeks. Are you really telling me now that I'm not trusted to have 10 people in my own home? And I do think that that's sort of where we're getting this sense of just this sense of, I don't want to use that word outrage, because I hate that idea that everyone sort of ends up, ragging on the government or whoever's in power or politicians and all that stuff. But that's sort of why we're getting this dialogue. For me, the wider thing is, yay, people actually care, and they see that our political leaders do have these powers, and we give them that by voting for them. So the bill went through 63 to 57. So,
quite tight.
So it was just the 3 parties in government that voted for it, and it was the 2 opposition parties that voted against it. So, I mean, it's quite clear, sort of the political division within the House. And I guess voters need to take that on board when they're going to go to the polls this September.
Yeah. Now that bill has been passed, is there any way that will get amended over the next couple of weeks if they feel they've made a mistake, or once it's in stone, it's the next 3 months, that's how we see things, and we've just got to see it through?
You can always amend legislation, always. I think the thing is that Kiwis have done a service to their fellow Kiwis by letting themselves be locked down for such a long time. It was 49 days, and once public gets their sense of normality, which they are today, that's the thing that's going to run away. You all of a sudden, when everyone starts, getting their lives back, when that starts running away, that's it. And so I think that's actually the bigger thing, is that you're going to see everyone be like, I made this sacrifice, but now I have done nothing wrong, and so I want my life back. And I understand why people think like that. And I think that's sort of actually the thing that's probably going to start happening, that where people are just like, oh, well, stuff it.
Yeah, you can definitely get a sense of that. There's like little whispers of things happening around the place, like Brian Tamaki with Destiny Church, and there's also just from chats I've had online with different people, they feel the health issue is at bay now, and we can start rocking and rolling again. And I think there was pushback on funerals and tangi around how many people could go to those gatherings, so that got changed very quickly. So it's pretty cool to see the wider public getting engaged with all this stuff when previously they hadn't, right?
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing, because that's what I do on a daily, is have a look at what's happening in the House. Because the House, just remember, Parliament, it's called the House of Representatives. So their fundamental job, first and foremost, is to represent the people. So if you're going off that lens, then people should be caring what they're doing. People don't, because as far as they're concerned, well, they're like out of the way and I just don't want to think about it until it has a massive affront to affect their lives. And that's why, for me, the more exciting part is whatever side that you land on all these arguments, and there's good ones on all sides, and I understand it, and that's what we should be talking about. The fundamental thing that I'm more excited about is people actually care and they feel empowered to say things.
Yeah, which is awesome. I think we'll get more engagement with the election coming up, which is super exciting. We'll touch on the election shortly, because I'm sure you have a few thoughts there. What do you think that the government or politicians on the whole have sort of come together, and they've managed to put politics to aside for one moment just to deal with this crisis, because it's almost bigger than politics?
Oh, but it is bigger than politics without a doubt, because it's worldwide, it's global. You know, every single country in some way, shape or form has been affected by this. So to answer your question, yes, I think that our politicians have done a good job in putting their politics to one side, and it has been very difficult in many ways because there's been so many changes. There's so many changes that have had to be made to our ways of life, and that's so hard to get, almost full consensus for people to be able to do that. That is now, in my view, no longer the case, because what you're seeing now is everyone can see the fruits of their labour. That is, we've only got 137 active cases or something, and we've only got, I think, 2 people, unfortunately, in hospital. I don't know the numbers because I've sort of tuned out of that stuff. But now it's kind of like, cool. So we've got a very, very, it's probably 0.00001% of our population impacted in the health regard. And now we really need to think about the economic perspective.
So now that the health issue is at bay, it's going to turn into Wild West politics again, where they say he said, she said, and people will start pointing fingers, especially with rolling up to the elections. Would that be fair to say, or it's not going to quite evolve like that?
I mean, I think it's unfair to call it Wild West politics, because politics is politics.
Yeah.
People who enter politics and then they're not happy to take scrutiny shouldn't be in politics.
That's
as far as I'm concerned, if you're there telling our country how to run, you should be absolutely willing to be answering questions by the media. And if you're not willing, then find someone else to do the job, because politicians, right, should be, in essence, because they do have the power to make the laws, the most scrutinized people in our country. And when you get this term Wild West, it's just because us as people in the public, we don't act that way, but there's a part of showmanship in behind politics, and they have to be doing this stuff. And so everyone's like, oh, well, why can't they be more like conciliatory and that? Well, frankly, they don't have to be, because you have like things like civil liberties at stake. And so, it's their job to stand up for those value sets that they believe in. And it is the voters who vote them in to continue to have these discussions. So I wouldn't say it's going back to a Wild West. It's just seeing the actualities of politics play out. People should just continue to be interested in it. The one thing that I do always find fascinating is this inability for people to see past party lines and party colours. So by that I mean they think if they like one policy of one party, that means that they're suddenly aligned in some way, shape or form with that party and forever. And I will tell you right now that every single party in Parliament has something that I really like a policy or some issue that they've been advocating or something that they've done. And so for me, it's very, very simple to put politics to one side and have a look at what they're doing and be like, yeah, I like that, don't like that. And so we do have this real sense of, I always get stuck because I need to figure out how to articulate this, but this sense of like no, it's not collectivity. It's almost like a us and them, and people can't look rather and say, like, I really like that policy that X and National Party is running, and I really like that policy that Y and Green Party is running, and that's okay. Instead, we seem to have these things that you have to broadly agree with that general party, and that has to be the way that you then publicly identify. And I just think that that's fundamentally incorrect.
Totally agree. I was on one of my podcasts where someone asked in the call-in show what side of the fence am I on politically, and I said I don't really like to say that.
I hope you didn't answer. That's no one's business.
I'm happy to have a political discussion, but I didn't answer. But mainly because I think people automatically put you into a category. They automatically think of you as a certain person, or you advocate for certain things, and it's more complex than that. So it's hard to answer those sort of questions. But I think that's also one of the troubling things when it comes to elections. You have to side with someone. You have to tick a box for a certain party, and you have to back them, even though you may not back all their ideas.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% correct, and that's what a lot of people will pick up on what I said and be like, well, when it comes to the ballot box, you have to choose one. And yes, I accept that, you do. However, I'm thinking from my lens, like when I'm sitting out here and it's all said and done, ballots have been taken, and the cards lay as they may, and you have a government that you have to deal with. You don't have to blindly agree with everything government says, and you don't have to blindly agree with everything opposition says. You're totally within your right to be like, I really, really like that environmental policy, so I'm going to support it. I don't like the economic policy, so I'm not going to support that. But, if it's got something that you see value in and you think, yeah, cool, I like that, and I can make change on that, then there's no reason why you can't express that.
For sure. People become quite polarized by these ideas, I find. But they're normally the ones who shout loudest. They might be the minority.
Thank you. That is the word, polarizing.
Yeah, there we go. Dropped it in there. What do you think the craziest thing politically about this whole journey we've been on has been?
Oh, people are not going to like what I'm about to say.
Hit me. We like people expressing their thoughts, as long as you're comfortable saying it.
Yeah. Oh, no, of course. Everyone knows what I think. Jesus, I'm not shy. The thing that I find very hard to stomach was that internal memo which was leaked, which said you can dismiss media inquiries. Now, there's a number of reasons why I find that extremely confronting, but the primary is that politicians are never beyond and above scrutiny, ever, and I mentioned that earlier. And so for the Prime Minister's office to act in that regard, when arguably she is one of the most effective communicators, and she can front, and she should be able to trust her ministers to respond to this stuff, to say and put a memo out like that, which I know came from internal, like in her team. It weren't her words, so let's not confuse that. But to have that come from the Prime Minister's office, I do think is quite unfortunate after all of the great work that has been done to get Kiwis on board. And it did show to me a sort of ambivalence towards the need to explain things, because whether you do have, you're never, like, no government ever has full consensus from the public, and therefore there's always questions to be asked and there's always responses to be given. And the reality is, if you think about many of the political scandals that have been uncovered in the past, well, hey, I'm 29, so let's say past 30 years, most of them, if not all of them, have been uncovered through the work of journalists. So I found that very disappointing, because I think you have a cabinet of 20, they have they have ministerial warrants, they have the power to change policy and spend taxpayers' dollars. And as long as you're doing that, you're answerable to the fourth estate, which is media. So that is my most disappointing thing of this all. And lots of people have said it's part of comms or it's crisis management 101. I've done comms. Absolutely not when you're talking about politicians. Is that ever a way in which you manage these things? So, yeah, I mean, everyone's entitled to take their own view. I think it's sad because I personally don't think it's something that the Prime Minister would have directed her team to do. But it does raise the question as why they think that's okay to not be answerable to the media.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that, I suppose, people go into politics to give their thoughts, their ideas, try and change the country for the better, and then for a bomb like that to drop, even if it's not from the Prime Minister directly, is pretty disappointing. Do
you know what the thing is that I find super interesting that sort of no one has really picked up on? Is that it was a leaked memo. So that means somebody inside.
That someone went to the media and said.
Yeah. So it means someone on the inside didn't agree with it, and then so they gave it to the media.
And but that's good to expose that sort of thing, right?
Of course. It's good. It's hard to deal with when you're inside. I've been on the other side when you're like, whoa. But the thing is that people haven't spoken about the fact that it was leaked. So, the opposition's not privy to those communications. The public's not privy to those communications. So it's within their own staff and within there, made up of three parties, that somebody has gone, I don't like this, and it's gone out. And so
pretty bold. Is that legal?
Of course it's legal.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey,
because it's privy to only a few people, like what happens behind closed doors, because that people have different conversations depending on the audience, right? So there's some conversations you just don't have with others, and I get that. But so there needs to be appropriateness with everything that happens. Obviously, this is a bit different because people are being told
what it tells me is that there's a little bit of fragility within the coalition arrangement, because I'm not sure that it would have been from the biggest party. They would have leaked on themselves. So that's sort of the point that I'm making.
Heads will roll in the days to come. I
don't know. I don't know if it's that, but all I'm saying is that the question, we need to look at the fact that it was a leaked memo means that within their own inner sanctum, people don't agree with that, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, good on for the people that made the bold move and decided that they wouldn't take it. It's a big thing. There's been a few funny stories that have popped up throughout this thing. There's been David Clarke. He's gone. We haven't heard from him. He's off the show because of all he went to the beach, he moved house, he went mountain biking. What is up with him, mate? The health minister.
Oh, so in the depths of it, I was super, super outraged. I was like, how dare you take, I'm doing all this sacrifice and then you're not even doing it. And I don't even care. I'm just like, whatever. And also, I do think he's become a little bit of a kicking horse for the media. Oh, cool. Yeah. Every time we print something about him, mucking up, then everyone sort of jumps on and piles in because, and so I do think that he's almost now subject to the other end of the spectrum, which is sort of a little bit unfair, where everyone's just okay, what can we focus on about him rather than him actually doing his job?
But we don't know about what he's been doing because he's been so quiet, right?
No, he's in Parliament. So if you tune, this is the thing, if you tune into Parliament TV, he's there. And he's responding to questions from the opposition. And this is what I mean. If you just take at face value of what mainstream media is telling you, then you don't have the full story. But it's I listened to him answer questions from I'm not sure, I can't remember who was asking him questions, but, you know, someone was asking him questions in the House yesterday, and he's there answering, he's fronting, he's like there. And so, you know, suddenly it's not a story because they can't pin a problem on him, but he's still there, he's doing his job, and he's focused on the task at hand. So, you know, I kind of like think it, like look back at that, and I'm like, oh, it's such a long time ago now. I'm just kind of like, whatever, move on.
Yeah, but it is interesting coming from the health minister when he's meant to be at the forefront, isn't it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. No, you're not wrong. Correct. It's just a bit of a brain fart, to be honest. And I would hope that, like, when it's a health response and you're the health minister, you do sort of use your judgment a little bit more, you know. But hey,
yeah. What can you do? Moving sideways slightly. What's your thoughts about the elections coming up? What's predictions? How will politicians go into their election campaigns? Because we're living in different times. What are your thoughts around all that?
I think the thing that we touched on right at the top of the show was how, you know, I said, oh, everyone's super, super interested in their democracy now. And then you said, oh, that will hopefully create better outcomes for the election. And I 110% hope it does. Because like when people are engaged and then they're actively using their brains to think about the stuff that they're being told, then they make better decisions, but they can weigh up the things that they're being told with their own values rather than just regurgitating stuff. So in terms of the election, I'm hopeful that we get a really, really good turnout. I'm hoping that means millennials too. You'll have to do your part.
Yeah, I'll be there. I've always voted. It's important.
It is important. And also just the other things that they're looking at doing, the Electoral Commission's come out with a whole suite of things to make sure that health is looked after in these interesting times. And so there's lots of opportunities for people to advance vote. There'll be more advanced polling stations, you know. So I would just say, like, if you sort of know what you want to do, if you've looked at the outcomes and you think, yeah, cool, I'm happy in my decision, I sort of know what I want for the next 3 years, then as soon as you can vote, go and vote. That would be my recommendation. I always advance vote because I like to get it out of the way. I think what will be interesting is to see what happens in the budget today, and then see how some of this expenditure plays out over the next 2 months. And then I think that will help really solidify people's views on what they want to see for the next 3 years.
Is there more budget announcements? Because there's
the whole budget today.
Yeah. No. I didn't finish. No. I knew there was something coming out today. But is there more budget announcements more frequently because we're living through this epidemic? Do they come out more regularly saying changes to the budget because it is a shifting beast and there's more people chipping in saying what their worries are, and they're hearing more voices? Is there more of that conversation going on, or once they announce it, it'll be just as regular as pre-COVID-19?
So we've got two things that are sort of happening right now. So the first is every year the government does a budget in May, and that's the opportunity to talk about what their spending for the next 3 years is going to look like, and that always happens. So this budget date was announced October of last year, I think, or September.
Okay.
I don't know, ages ago. So we've always had this date. Now, what you're talking about with the additional expenditure was the government's response a few months ago, or a month ago, to put capital injection, like put money into the economy to deal directly with the impact of COVID-19. And so they did that through legislation. And that was where you got that $50 billion number, you know, that's been talked around, like the government's increasing expenditure. So that is like separate to the budget that we're going to get today. That was the government's response to, oh my God, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening and it's going to heavily impact our country. We need to mobilize now. And so that was a way to say, we've earmarked all this money, we're now going to start, responding and spending the money. And so that one's sort of over there. That's the direct COVID response at the time. We're now got a second tranche of sort of response, and that's without our budget. And then you're correct, we'll see more announcements as we the stuff happens. What I think will happen is that the checkbook, so the government checkbook, is going to be a lot more open than it has been in the past.
In terms of transparent, or they'll be able to spend the money?
Mean as in spending, yeah. So it will just be interesting to see what announcements and what they've prioritised today. I have had a look at some of the finance minister's comments, because he always foreshadows his announcements. He always goes through and talks about what his expectations are. So if people want to sort of place their bets on what's going to be in the budget, you always just have to go and have a look at what the finance minister said, because he's quite clear in what he says and where he is thinking. And I like that, because it means that, as someone in the private sector who's not privy to this stuff, you get a really good flavour of where he's going. And, that's helpful for businesses, because then they can think, oh, well, this is the stuff the finance minister is prioritising. So I do think you're going to see a lot more investment in skills. You're going to see a lot more investment in the public sector. You're going to see a lot more investment in the critical services. So fingers crossed that means pay rises for a few of the people that we super rely on in these times. And then, the rest, hey, they'll announce it today and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Pretty epic announcement. Hopefully it puts New Zealand in a good place, or at least provides some certainty to a few industries, right? It's
spot on. Yeah, certainty, that's the thing that people are crying out for after 8 weeks of uncertainty. People just want that, and it's like, I'm thinking about hiring now. So it's like, I just sort of want to know what the parameters are so I can make that confidently. Because, it's nothing like uncertainty to mean that you're not going to make investments in yourself or your business, because you just can't really see what's going to happen in the future.
For sure. What excites you most about level 2, level 1, post-COVID world? What's to come in the next few months?
Without a doubt, it's just going and being able to see people again. I'm very simple.
Again, thank you for your time. We're remote, keeping you away from people.
Yeah, that's all right. I wasn't gonna rush out. I still got work to do. But just really touch base with everyone that I haven't been able to see and haven't been able to communicate with, because the dynamic when you're with someone is so different than when you're on this kind of thing, or a phone call or a text. Sure. So I definitely just want to touch base with all of my clients and see them. They've all had a super hard time, and they've done some amazing work, and I just want to touch base with them all, and then also just see all my really good mates who I haven't seen. And it's just people's the priority. That's what I'm most excited for.
Way better vibes when you're actually face to face. That's for sure.
100%.
As we close off, any last comments, any messages for the public around government, around politics, or any personal thoughts that you may have?
I think my biggest thing would be, if anyone's felt like COVID-19 has brought to the forefront this idea of being more involved in politics or knowing more about their democracy, then they should jump on that now, because it's a really interesting time where you've seen the power of your politicians and the things that they have the ability to do. And that's exactly what my new business Engage is doing, is teaching people to know how to engage, because what they see is politicians in the newspaper, rather than knowing actually sort of how to have a constructive conversation and get things done behind the scenes. And it can be a daunting thing for people to think, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to navigate this? I've got a real problem, and I don't know where to start. And so that's what Engage, my new business, is all about.
We'll pull it up, eh?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, cool. So this is my Instagram platform, which I'm slowly trying to build. See there, you can see me and Rebet from when we had a hui online Zoom the other day. Yeah, that picture relates to him waiting for me to ask him a question back, and I didn't. And then he was like, "So I'm gonna answer it, just even though you haven't asked me." And I was like, "Sorry, bro." But the whole platform is to actually bring the power of what I do as a consultant to everyone, because everyone should have these skills. It's not a dark art. It's what I do. There's just a sense, like a set of like fundamental principles and things that you can follow to get better outcomes when you're trying to engage in this huge, confusing world. And so that's the thing. So if anyone is interested, as soon as the platform goes live, you'll be able to check it out on engage.org.nz. My thing would be just to follow us on Instagram. We're going to start a free series of information coming out shortly. And it's just making sure that people know that you don't necessarily have to use someone like me. I'm the tool for you to know how to do it yourself. Like, that's what I want. I want more people to know how to do what I do, not less.
We'll put a link to the Instagram on after the show.
Awesome.
We'll put it in the comment section, so we'll give you a bit of a plug there. Thanks so much, Holly, for your time, your thoughts, your energy.
Thank you for having me.
It's been really cool to connect. I literally just sent you a LinkedIn message last week and on you went. So yeah, it's cool to meet you as well.
Thank you. You're in Dunedin, is that right?
Yeah, I'm down in Dunners. Yeah.
What's the weather like there?
We've had a few Dunners stunners, we call them. So, it's pretty chilly at times, but yeah, it's all 4 seasons in every couple of days. So sometimes the sun's shining, but can get chilly because we're just at that end of the country. But
you need to head up, mate. It's like sunny as day here. It's beautiful.
Well, I was living in Auckland for the past like 5 years or 6 years. So yeah, just a new taste of a new area, but it's all good. I'm getting through. Don't you worry.
Yeah, well, that's good. Actually, though, looking at the dynamic, it looks like I'm colder than you because I'm in this jumper and you're in like a t-shirt. But I promise you, I'm not. It's warm here.
It's all good. All good. All right, Holly. Thanks so much. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you.
Enjoy level 2. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Epic. She's awesome. She's got such energy. She's engaged with everything that's going on around her. She's a bit of a powerhouse. HSB founder, government relations dynamo, releasing a new brand, Engage, to teach people about how to engage with politics and all of that world. So super excited to see her journey. That's all from me today. We have another epic person on the show tomorrow. That's Lawrence Lotze. He's the podcast host of The Wolf of Queen Street and also a speaker. So he'll be talking more about resilience in these times because he's had his own personal journey that he's had to go through, and so we'll delve into that world. And also he talks to a lot of people in business, so he'll have his own thoughts around what's happening. But that's all from me for today. We'll catch you on the next show. Enjoy level 2, everyone. Peace.